Hello. At least it's Monday. I've been on the phone this morning with doctors and waiting for calls, trying to get a bone scan set up before it's too late. We are supposed to leave on a trip. I don't think I've told you all about this. Some of you individually I have. But my husband and I, this is our 50th anniversary. This December, actually, December 28th. But this year is our anniversary date, our 50th. And so we decided to take a trip. We've always wanted to go to Europe. My husband has longed for the sight of Germany and Austria for years. So we bought tickets, and then I've started having more problems with my health. Michael was telling people at church yesterday, he said that he's watched me suffer with this for 12 years, this metastatic breast cancer, but never more than in the last month. And it's true, there have been a lot of difficult times, but I seem to have done well over the weekend. But let me tell you, last week after I made my post on Tuesday, I was in the kitchen. Michael had just left to go work with our son up the road. And all of a sudden my back went out, my lower back, and I could hardly move. I called him and said, "You've got to get back here and help me." And so he did. For the rest of the day, he helped me and waited on me and helped me get from point A to B. And I Wednesday went to my chiropractor, and there was a lot of suffering even there. I could barely walk to and from. And she didn't really dare to touch it because the x-ray I'd had on the previous Friday hadn't come into her. I was supposed to take it manually, but I didn't. And so I didn't get a whole lot of advice from her other than that she thought I should go home and use moist heat on it. And later on, talking with the pain management people and who were in touch with my oncologist up there in Brewer, said that they agreed that moist heat would probably be the best thing. And again, increasing pain meds would only knock me out. I mean, in order to touch this, it would be a matter of, Muffy, you always want to join me when I do these things. Come on. The pain med, in order to give me enough to put out all of these pains that come now and then, and when I move here and there, I would be asleep, unconscious half the time. So that's not the answer. So we prescribed a muscle relaxant, which made me sick for the rest of the week. So there was a lot of running to the bathroom for that. And so I stopped taking it over the weekend and used a lot of moist heat and resting, and things subsided. And I had a good weekend. I didn't go to church Sunday morning. I wasn't feeling well enough, but Sunday night we were able to go, and that was good. And I was thankful to be able to see my friends and my pastor. And so I started out by saying I've been really busy all morning tending to these things. And so I have a little break here. And what's been on my mind is something from 1 Samuel, where I've been reading the story of David. And in chapter 18, talks about verse 5, David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. Now Saul is working for him because I think Saul wanted to keep an eye on him. He knew that the people were drawn to David, and he was a good man, and he was wise, and that behaving himself wisely, they're equating it with prospering. In other words, things went David's way, and Saul he could see that God was with him. And David had already slain Goliath and gotten the people's attention and admiration. And David had already been anointed by Samuel as king. So here in this chapter 18, there were two other places where it says, David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Therefore, when Saul saw that he behaved very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. So David was making quite a reputation for himself. Then in the last verse in this chapter, then the princes of the Philistines went out to war. And so it was, whenever they went out, that David behaved more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name became highly esteemed. Wisely. And I thought about Psalm 101 that was written by David. And he says, I will sing of mercy and justice. To you, O Lord, I will sing praises. I will behave wisely in a perfect or blameless way. Or when will you come to me? I will walk within my house with a blameless heart. And it goes on to say what he plans to do, to live holy in God's eyes. He knew he wasn't perfect, but he was determining to walk in God's ways. Okay, so he prayed he'd be wise. He's getting a reputation for being wise. Now, we fast forward a little bit to chapter 25. David is on the run at this point because Saul hates him and is determined to kill him. He'd already tried several times a couple of times to pin him to the wall with his spear. So David knew he had to get out of there. And he's on the run, and he has hundreds of men who have joined up with it. They trust him. They believe in him. They know what his future is as king. So they know he needs protection. So they align themselves with him. So David and his men are in an area that belongs to this man named Nabal. Now, if you've ever read this chapter, you know what I'm talking about. It's the story of a wicked man in contrast to his wise, godly wife. So, the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife, Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance. But the man was harsh and evil in his doings. And when David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, David sent 10 young men. And David said to the young men, go up to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And so he tells them what to say. We've protected your shearers of the sheep. We have been a wall of protection because there were probably others around there that would have given them problems and tried to steal the sheep or assault them in some way. But he says, ask Nabal for food because we're all starving to death. We're on the run from Saul. Please help us. We've been good to you. Would you be good to us? Well, this is what Nabal says. Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away, each one from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men when I do not know where they are from? He knew where they were from. So David's young men turned on their heels and went back. And when they told David this, he said, gird on your swords, men. We're going to go slaughter them. So David is about to take vengeance. And one of Nabal's young servants, actually, it was a young servant, ran to Abigail and told her and said, this is what's going to happen if you don't do something. And so she gathered up all this food and loaded it up on camels, and away they went. And she rode on a donkey and went galloping along as far as a donkey would gallop, fast as one would gallop, and gets to David and is down on her face before him, begging for mercy. But what really gets me is how she appeals to him. She tells him she wasn't there and didn't hear when the request was made by David's men to give them food. She said, "My Lord, please let not my Lord regard this scoundrel Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him." The name means fool. "But I, your maidservant, did not see the young man of my Lord whom you sent." And so she's begging him not to avenge himself with these enemies. She said, "And now, this present, let it be given to the young men who follow my Lord." She keeps referring to him, lowercase Lord, but then she'll talk about the Lord in capital letters. She said, "Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord." That one. "And evil is not found in you throughout your days." So here she is. She's a wise woman. She's a godly woman. She believes in the Lord, and she has had her ear to the ground. She knows the reputation of David, that someday he's going to be king. And she's saying, you fight the battles of the Lord. She said, "Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life." She's referring to Saul, so she knows about that. She knows Saul is after him. "But the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the pocket of a sling." Now, what do you think she's referring to there? Could it be that David's reputation of being a giant slayer with a sling had reached her ears? Seems so to me. "And it shall come to pass, when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel." In other words, she knew he was going to be king. She had heard that. "This will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant." So she knows he's going to be king, and she said she's appealing to him on his better wisdom, the wisdom that he should have, and he has exhibited in the past. She's appealing to him and saying, you don't want this on your conscience, that you've tried to avenge yourself and shed innocent blood. So David thanks her. "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me." Don't you want to be sent by the Lord? I know I do. I'd love to know that each day, in some way, I am sent by the Lord to bless somebody, to help someone, keep them back from falling into sin or doing something that they'll later regret. So the story goes that she goes back home and she's wise. Nabal has been having a feast, a huge feast, and they're all drinking and having a great time after he's just despised a man of God. And it says his heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. Therefore she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. She thought, I'm not going to tell him anything, because he'll probably, in this drunken rage, lash out at me. So she waited until morning, when the wine had gone from Nabal. And then she told him these things. And when she told him what he had done, he had a stroke. His heart died within him, and he became like a stone. Then it happened after about 10 days that the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. So God delivered this wise woman from this fool. And you know, later on, David hears about it, and he proposes to her, and she becomes his wife. I love this story. It's really neat. But you know, I think, how do we apply this to ourselves? For one thing, if you want to be wise in your situation, you may find yourself in a difficult situation. If you want to be wise about it, go to God. See life as he sees it. Get into his word. Know what's right and wrong, and align yourself with him so that you can be a woman or a man of good understanding. You can be a man like David, who was a man after God's own heart, who determined that he was going to behave himself wisely, and who got a reputation behaving himself wisely as he worked for a wicked man. Because Saul wouldn't let him leave and go back to his father at some point. He had to stay there and fight battles for him, and then end up running from him. So if you find yourself in a difficult situation, be wise. Go to God and pray for his wisdom. Stay into his word and find out what he wants you to do about this, and trust him. And take heart from this story, because God is going to bless you. He's going to give you wisdom and give you peace about the future. But you need to keep your eyes on Jesus. And so I have a song that was written by my late friend Ron Hamilton. I love this song. It's called Keep My Eyes Fixed on You. Jesus, Jesus, keep my eyes fixed on you. Jesus, Jesus, please control all I do. When others look at me, let them see your loving face. Jesus, Jesus, I give you first place. Jesus, Jesus, keep my mind fixed on you. Jesus, Jesus, please make all my thoughts new. When others look at me, let them know I am your own. Jesus, Jesus, I bow at your throne.